entitled Independent Theater by Frana Žižka, a dialogue with the Prague Avant-Garde. But in the first place, I would like to mention that perhaps even a better title that I thought of when I was preparing this presentation would be the PETO Avant-Garde. In this paper, I will present the concept of illusionist theater as developed by Frana Žižka in his independent theater and further on the stage of the PETO regional theater in 2 seasons that took place from 1938 until 1940. Just one comment about this term, illusionism. Actually, in English, I don't know what would be the correct translation. In Slovenian, it is illusionism, so not anti-illusionism, and not
non-illusion.
No, this is precisely the point that I will try to reveal. So it's not non-illusionistic, but it's a-illusionistic. We'll see why. This is the concept developed by Frana Žižka, and in this chapter of the Slovenian avant-garde has not received as much attention in the processes of historicization of Slovenian theater as, for example, the endeavors of the other avant-gardists of the time, such as dialog. This was certainly due to the fact that Žižek's efforts took place on the stage of the PETO theater, which was considered a peripheral theater venue in relation to nearby Maribor. This is also how Fran Žižek experienced it. In his book Moja zgodnja gledališka leta, My Early Theater Years, which was published decades later, more precisely in 2000, he reflected in more detail on this period of his work. He pointed out several times that he pursued his avant-garde aspirations on a provincial stage with amateur actors and in front of an audience that was not accustomed to experimentation. He pointed out that, and I quote, avant-garde theaters in the world derived from economically poor beginnings, but they created in the world's cultural metropolises where they could rely on a wide audience attracted by experimentation. And such an audience did not yet exist in Slovenia at that time. Žižek studied in Prague at the drama department of the conservatory and was also an assistant to Emil František Burjan in his then famous D35 theater. Žižek himself was fond of emphasizing this in his lectures that often accompanied his performances and also in various other writings. And this is probably also the reason why the not entirely correct interpretation of Žižek's endeavors has prevailed in Slovenian theater historiography. And that is that Žižek developed the concept of an illusionist theater mainly under the Burjan's influence. The aim of this paper is to highlight the uniqueness of Žižek's concept of an illusionist theater and to show how he developed it in the in his travels between 2 locations, between PETO and Prague. PETO as the periphery of the more theatrically developed Maribor, and Prague as the dance center of the Central European avant-gardes. I would also like to offer for consideration the notion of the PETO avant-garde, as already mentioned in the beginning. Žižek used it several times in his book My Early Theater Years. However, as a term for denoting the avant-garde endeavors of a group of enthusiasts in PETO has not been used yet. Well, Frana Žižek first presented his idea of an illusionist theater at the International Congress of Avant-Garde Theaters in Prague in 1937. This was a conference that was organized as part of the D37 Spring Festival, which was attended by over 30 guests from Denmark, Netherlands, Sweden, Austria and Norway. And from Yugoslavia, Burian invited Bratko Kreft, Branko Gavela, Bojan Stupica, and also the Serbian composer and conductor at the Belgrade Radio, Vojislav Vučković, and Oskar Danon, a composition student at the Prague Conservatoire. Frana Žižek began his paper by pointing out that innovative approaches to performing had been driven by a growing interest in anti-illusionism since the beginning of the 20th century. Various art movements, expressionism, cubism, surrealism, etc., began to replace the scenery, or the flats of the old illusionistic stage with various stylized indications. Žižek illustrated this with the examples of Appia, Tairo and Piscator, whose innovations, however, still sought to arouse in spectators the recognition and perception of very specific places and environments. For Žižek, however, illusionism was a consistent denial of any illusionism. He advocated an ascetic version of a total theater, as a synthesis of literature, drama, dance, music and visual arts that is established in an empty space with acting as its main component. In comparison with the lavish stagings of Burian's performances, admired by the guests of the D37 festival, illusionism is much more modest and ascetic. It is based on a single component of total theater, the art of acting. I'm quoting Frana Žižek now. This is the truly original component of theater, as all the other components are merely associated and derived from their own and independent fields of art. Drama from literature, set and costume design from the visual arts, etc. According to Žižek, the illusionist actor is similar to the actor of the Elizabethan theater, who merely marked the scenes with words, while the spectators supplemented these indications with their imagination. Žižek tried to bring a new dimension to the neutral, empty stage, and that is movement. He placed various moving scenic devices or stage machines on the stage, which allowed the actors to expand the possibilities of their expression. Instead of flats, he used light projections and film projections. This is highlighted by Ana Kocijančić in her book Prostor u prostoru. Space in Space would be the translation of the title of this excellent book in English. Well, the book, which brings a comprehensive overview of set design in Slovenia from the 17th century to 1991. And Anna notes that Žižek's work before the Second World War coincided with the trends of European theaters. Žižek was not able to support his vision of an illusionist theater at the International Congress in Prague with an example from his directing practice, as he had not directed a performance in an illusionist way before. When he returned home in Studence near Maribor, a month later, he enthused his colleagues about his experiment. And they staged a play, Magda, by Alojzij Remec, and Alojzij Remec also is a playwright and writer from Ptuj. It is a short, well, Magda is a short and a very challenging play for directors and stage designers, simply because of the fact that the action takes place in 12 different locations. Magda was staged in the former hall of Delovski Dom, so the workers' home, where there was no longer a stage with a portal frame. Žižek had conceived of a square stage surface that could be tilted on all sides. But he had to be satisfied with a round panel that had a uniform slope towards the hall. It could be seen also, well, also on this photo. This is this round panel. You can imagine it, and that was tilted towards the audience. Well, a journalist from the Belgrade newspaper Pravda, who saw this performance by coincidence, as Žižek notes, wrote that the performance was more like a dance, full of dynamics. The actor's speech thus came to extraordinary expression and effect. And that he also wrote that the audience was surprised and delighted. Žižek, however, was not so satisfied. I quote Žižek, "My A-illusionist experiment would probably have been more visible in a cultural metropolis than it was in the suburbs of Maribor, where it was barely even noticed by the local cultural community. In any case, it was a great satisfaction to me that Emil František Burjan published a photograph of performance Magda on the cover of the D38 theater program, thus encouraging me to continue my exploration of the A-illusionist theater." End quote. And this is the cover of this program. When he returned home from Prague, Žižek founded the Independent Theater with a group of young unemployed actors. The founding meeting of the Independent Theater was actually in Celje in 1938, and the opening performance was the Chinese play The Peach Blossom. Žižek found it in the Oriental Institute in Prague. In his opinion, the original Chinese play represents the height of avant-garde art, as it is radically different from all the trappings of our illusionist stage. On the Chinese stage, there are no illusionistic scenery, only here and there a stage object which has all kinds of meanings. The main attention of the spectators is paid to the actors, or rather to their art of acting, which combines stylized declamation with singing, pantomime, dance, and acrobatics. In Žižek's view, Peach Blossom was epic as well as synthetic. By synthetic, he means he refers to the term total theater. So what is now known as total theater, Žižek was thinking, Žižek thought of the total theater and spoke of the total theater as of a synthetic theater. Peach Blossom, in his opinion, was epic and also synthetic. The text organically intertwined with music, singing, dancing, and pantomime, and as such eminently suitable for the debut of the independent theater. The premiere took place on the 12th of August 1938 in the hall of the Ljudska Univerza in Maribor. And here are the three photos of Peach Blossom. So on this photo, this actor on the photo, this is Babic. Yeah. And I also have short footage of
gledališče. 12. avgusta smo že uprizorili v dvorani Ljudske univerze kitajsko poetično igro Breskov cvet. Igrali smo na praznem podiju, brez odrskega okvira in brez kulis. Vsa dekoracija je obstajala iz 3 kitajskih paravanov, ki so jih igralci sami premikali in z njimi naznačevali prizorišča, gledalci pa so dopolnjevali svojo domišljijo.
Well, the production was warmly received, and Jaro Dolar wrote in Večernik that the performance of the independent theater under the direction of Frana Žižka was a sensation. Everyone who has any interest in theater came to see the performance and filled the hall of the Ljudska univerza. It must be admitted that the director succeeded in convincing us of the legitimacy of the new avant-garde style. Well, Žižek was looking for a home for his theater in Celje, where his initiative was ignored. After the premiere of The Peach Blossom, Anton Ingolic, a writer and intendant, sort of a director of the Ptuj Theater, at that time offered Žižek the position of director in Ptuj, and Žižek accepted it. To Fran Žižek, Ptuj seemed a kind of a Lilliput of metropolitan Prague. The castle on the hill reminded him of Hradčany, the Drava river of the Vltava, the narrow streets with their ancient houses of Prague's Mala Strana, and the Ptuj theater evoked comparisons with the grand houses of the Czech metropolis. Now let's have a look.
Notranjost gledališča je pa še vedno takšna, kako je bila leta 1908. Majhen, prijeten auditorij in lesen, primitiven oder. Na tem odru sem delal 2 sezoni. Bil sem tukaj vse, od umetniškega vodje do režiserja, scenografa, kostumografa, občasno sem tudi igral. Imel sem pa odlično tehnično ekipo. Bili so samo...
All right. Well, this is the theater where Fran Žižek worked in Ptuj, and he actually explained that the hall and from the inside the theater didn't change from the times when he was working there. I think that it was renovated, but we who attended the performances there still know how this hall looked like. Well, Žižek used the, Žižek staged nearly 15 to 20 performances in 2 seasons from 1938 till 1940 on this stage in Ptuj. He used the repertoire plan he had devised for the independent theater and adapted it slightly for the Ptuj audience. The repertoire of his first season consisted exclusively of Slovenian drama. In Ptuj, with its predominantly German population, this was primarily a political gesture. This is what Andrea Babšek points out, and this was at the time just before the outbreak of the Second World War, when Hitler was intensifying pressures on Czechoslovakia, and the German army invaded the Sudetenland, so the Sudeti, which resonated also among the Germans of Ptuj. In Žižek's opinion, the task of theater was to raise national consciousness in all our nationally threatened places. His idea of an illusionist theater is well illustrated in the staging of Beautiful Vida, Lepa Vida, by Ivan Cankar. And let's have a look.
Se dogaja v okolju cukrarne, kjer umirajo naši slovenski umetniki. Dogaja se pa tudi v nekem irealnem svetu sanj, hrepenenja, agonije. In kako smo mi to postavili?
Žižek just explained that Lepa Vida is set in the environment of the Cukrarna, where Slovenian artists were dying, and at the same time it takes place in the irreal world of dreams, longing and agony. And we can see the very good at this photo. The walls of the real room were transparent, so that the audience could see the events behind the wall through the tulle fabric. So the world of longing and feverish fantasies was enhanced by shadow games and film projections. And this was made possible by a large film screen at the back of the stage. Now let us look at the next video. And I would just like to mention that this is not a recording of the performance, but an excerpt from a television film about a film, Lepa Vida, so Beautiful Vida, that Frana Žižek screened several years later.
Prizori, ki so se dogajali za odrom, sem pozneje posnel tudi na televiziji.
Pozdravljeni. Težko, oj, težko se nas čakam. Kod ste hodili? Kje ste se mudili? Kje sta ženin in nevesta? Kje je Dionis moj mali? Kje je Vida moja roža? Odprite duri na stežaj. O sestra, čakal sem vaju v trpljenju in veri. Opač stoletje in 1000 let.
Brat, zdaj je vse dopolnil.
Vse pozabljeno.
Dolga je bila pot, trda in strma.
Dolga je bila noč, temna in strašna.
Vse je dopolnjeno, vse pozabljeno. Zdaj drži široka bela cesta v večno pogled.
Ti bodi znal.
Ne sam. Ne. Ali jih je 1000 in 1000krat 1000. Vsi pojdejo z nami, vsi, ki so bili bridkost hrepenenja.
Takšnih je.
It is important to note that the theater in Ptuj was also a cinema at that time, and Žižek used technical devices used for film projections in his performances. And it was these technical devices, film and sound devices, that elevated the Ptuj theatre above the professional theatres in Maribor and Ljubljana. Such effects could not be produced on Maribor or Ljubljana stages. As Andreja Babšek points out, the intertwining of theatre and film in Slovenia at that time, when theatre was losing its audience because of cinema, was also a bold gesture. Žižek was thinking even of an original Slovenian performance style that would differentiate Slovenian performances from the generally accepted templates of European theatre culture. Andreja Babšek says that it seems that Žižek was not really concerned with the search for Slovenes as such, but rather with the search for an ideological message that would effectively address the spectators. His A-illusionist theatre was linked to the tradition of French theatre, and that is the folk theatre, of course adapted to the circumstances of his time. This was well illustrated, for example, in the staging of Martin Krpan by Fran. This performance also represents the peak of Žižek's work in Ptuj. It is also the last performance Žižek directed in Ptuj. He drew on Slovenian folklore and folk traditions containing elements such as chorus, a leader, interspersed dialogues, and pantomime were close to Žižek's illusionism. Žižek's avant-garde endeavors in Ptuj were interrupted by his conscription to military service, which had been postponed until then because of his studies in Prague. After the Second World War, however, he pursued his ideas in both professional theatres in Maribor and in Ljubljana. And the first plays he staged in Maribor with great success were precisely adaptations of the most popular performances from the Ptuj stage. So I would finish with this, and thank you for